Good morning. I wanted to touch base with everyone about these portfolio projects. Um, in respect to what the project should start to be looking like, really, what are we doing? We have a data set, right, that looks like this, and you're taking that data set, right, and you're developing a sort of a business proposal based on that data. And I chose this project because I've done this project at work, right? It was a project I actually did. Clearly, I wasn't working for Burrito Brothers when I did it, but it was a project where I put surveys out to customers, received their feedback, and drew conclusions from that feedback, right? And that feedback, consisted of, they were struggling with a certain process. And so, what was my proposal in short? Well, let's train up our employees on how to better instruct customers on how to perform this process. And that's just a very simplistic view of taking data, right, developing a business proposal, and making a process better. Now, why are we doing this in Intro to Quality Management? Well, there's a big trend in quality management towards data science. And that trend uses tools like Excel, Tableau, a lot of Microsoft tools, Access, to take huge amounts of data, analyze it in some way, and then develop insights into what that data is telling us. And just to provide another example from my other job, the railroad ships 150,000 shipments a week. So every week I'm looking at a certain subset of commodities that are moving, right, specifically metals, and I'm analyzing those shipments for service quality. And when there's a problem, then I'm intervening and solving it, okay? And so what I wanted to do today was make it perfectly clear that I don't just want a rehash of this is the case study, here's what the data tells me, like, right, you're just going to copy and paste this thing. Don't want that, right? I want you to take this data, transform it in some way, and then give me an insight and say, this is how I'm going to solve it. Now, this is an introductory course, right? So I'm not expecting you to do things like ANOVA or advanced statistical processes to determine, oh, well, this thing is related to this thing, but isn't causing this thing, and doing all these margin of error calculations. It's not what I want, right? We're getting to that in the later supply chain courses like production and ops management and quality management to a degree. But what I really want you to show me that you understand how to do is take this data, transform it, present it to me, right? And how are you going to present it to me? Well, you're just going to take a snippet, right? Just like that, copy it, drop it in your paper, and say, this is what I think, okay? So, with all that said, I'm going to go over pivot tables one more time. I'm pretty sure I've already posted some resources about the pivot tables, but here we go. So this is the data you got. I've changed it a little bit, so it's not going to be, specifically, you can't just copy and paste what I'm doing here today and put that in your paper. It's not going to work. So with that, how do we make a pivot table? All right, so let's pick out some data that we want to throw into our pivot table. Let's go with overall satisfaction. So I'm going to hold down Shift, select B13, going all the way over, making sure that I stay in the right row. Control C. I'm going to start a new sheet. I'm going to put my data to transpose. Right, and all we're doing is we're picking and choosing or cherry picking this data. We're going to put it in a format that Excel can pivot table it for us. And so I'm going to paste, and I'm going to right click, and it has paste options. I want to transpose. So we have overall satisfaction. Next one, let's go ahead and do main ingredient. I like this, right? I like the main ingredient one if you watched my other videos. All I did was I highlighted again, I hold down Shift, select B20, went over to column AA, clicked again, Control C, go to my data to transpose, making sure that it lines up with this, right click, transpose. Fit that a little bit easier. And let's go ahead and do restaurant was clean. Same thing. I hold down Shift, B11, hold down Shift, column AA, Control C, data to transpose, transpose. All right, so now we have 3 data fields. And format this to make it look a little cleaner. All right, we all like grid lines here. Perfect. All right, so now we have our data set that we've cut down and kind of simplified things just because it's easier to work with. I click C4, I hold down Shift, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to click E29. Now another way you can do this is just click this, and I'll hold down Shift, and you can just use your arrow keys, or better yet, you can hold down Control and Shift. We get all of our columns. I just pressed right, I press down, we get all of our rows. So now I've highlighted everything. I'm going to click Insert, Pivot Table, okay. All right, and so now we have our pivot table fields over here on the right. And so what I want to look at today is main ingredient. All right, so we have main ingredient. We're going to put that into rows. We're going to look at main ingredient as it correlates. Notice it says correlates to overall satisfaction. Now, what has Excel done here? It's taken all the fields and the main ingredients, and it aggregates them all into a sort of formulate parameter here in column B, right? And so the sum of overall satisfaction for chicken, or item 1, is 21. Well, I don't really want the sum. I kind of want to know what the average is. So I come down here to my values. I click this, go to value field settings, and go average. All right. So now we have the average satisfaction as it relates or correlates to a menu item ingredient. And just to simplify things a little bit, and I do this a lot, I'm going to go ahead and highlight this the same way. Hold down Control Shift, right arrow, down arrow, Control C. I'm going to go to this one right here. I'm going to do paste options. And when I did paste options, I just did values. Okay, and I know that number 1, chicken, 2, beef, 3, pork, 4, beans. All right, what do we have now? We can make this a little bit cleaner now, because we don't need that explanation anymore. You can just call it main ingredient. That's fine. We'll throw in some grid lines. We will, so how do I do that? I just do grid lines, all borders. I'm highlighting these two by clicking D3, holding Shift, clicking E3. I press Control B. Now they're bold. Now I'm going to select the whole table. I'm going to center it up. So I come up here to align, go middle, middle. All right. And now we have a nice little table that we could theoretically use in our paper to make a point. And what would my theoretical point be in this? Well, The average overall customer satisfaction with beans is extremely high. We should explore offering additional bean item menus. Bean items containing beans on our menu. The pork one is very low. We should explore replacing that with tofu. Okay, so then you'd go on to tell me about that. If this were a more advanced course, I would be asking questions like, well, what is the cost of doing so? What are the process costs for changing these menu items? What are we spending today on pork? And is that the possible issue? And so there's a lot of different things that we could drill into, but for the purposes of this project, we're just focusing on pretty simplistic correlations and then developing a business proposal that's rational from those correlations. All right, so let's do it again. I'm going to go back to my pivot table. Let's go ahead and make another one. And instead of focusing on what was the main ingredient, let's focus on was the restaurant clean. So I just click the drop box for what was the main ingredient, and now I'm changing it to was the restaurant clean. And again, going down to my drag fields between areas below, I want restaurant was clean. Let's see. Let's trade these. Okay, here's a cool takeaway. All right, so what did I do? I put overall satisfaction here into rows, right? And so customers gave us a score. In this case, it was 2, 3, 4, or 5. And then when they gave us that score, some of the other data that they entered on the survey was the restaurant clean or not? So this takes all of the customers that had an overall satisfaction rating of 2 and then took the total number of data they provided as relates to was the restaurant clean or not, and it's taking that data and we're averaging it, right? We could do a lot of different things with it. We get the min, max, standard deviation, etc. But just for today's purposes, let's look at the average. Now, what do we see? Well, we see a high rating for satisfaction and cleanliness here. It's pretty well in line. Decreasing, something different. I don't know. Maybe the restaurant was dirty that day, but they got one of our bean menu items, right? That could be something that you could really impress me if you could show me that in a pivot table or a graph. But that aside, I think it's safe to say that there's a strong correlation between restaurant cleanliness and overall customer satisfaction, right? And so if we have employees cleaning on a regular schedule, then that's going to directly correlate to customer satisfaction, barring they don't get an awful tasting menu item. So again, what am I going to do? I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it. So again, I just click A3, hold down Shift, and I click down here, or A3, hold down Control Shift, right arrow, down arrow, Control C. I click this G3, right click, I'm going to paste values. Now we have overall customer satisfaction. So what am I doing? I'm getting my mouse over right in between columns G and H. I'm double clicking. That's not working, so I'm just going to drag it. Right. Also, what I could do to format it really quickly is I go over here to Format, Auto Fit Row Height, Auto Fit Column Width. And again, I'm going to center it, center, align, middle align, go to my grid lines or my borders, all borders, highlight these two columns, Control B. Looks pretty good, right? And so, and these are, again, really simplistic tables, but two tables that I would like to see, right? One could be driving home your point for your business proposal for the beans. The other one driving for a new process as related to keeping that restaurant clean. It could be training employees up on how to properly clean. It could be cleaning on a regular cadence, right? Twice a day, three times a day. And then also, and this is important, you always want to talk about how you could make this survey better the next round you do it, right? So we're doing continuous improvement. So one thing that I would do for this specific item that we're looking at, this average of restaurant was clean or not, what aspects were clean? Was it the bathroom? Was it the tables? Was it the serving area? Right? You could do an additional, in your conclusion, put one last little paragraph at the end there and say, in order to improve the process, we should run this survey again and gather more data on the restaurant cleanliness. And here's what we should gather data on. And here's how I would phrase the questions, right? And so that's absolutely one of my expectations that you look at is when you're making these proposals, like, okay, we have a decent proposal and let's keep the restaurant cleaner. That'll drive increased customer satisfaction. But how do we go about getting even more data on what will really make the customer satisfied in respect to that restaurant cleanliness quality, okay? And so I really wanted to go over this really quickly and sort of try to level set some expectations. And just to recap, what we did was we went over how to transpose data, right? And then using that transposed data, make a pivot table, and then sort of draw these correlational conclusions that translate into a business proposal. Within those business proposals, we're highlighting our course content from continuous improvement, right? And with our proposals comes the caveat that we're looking to the future. How are we going to make this, like the survey process itself, better in the future so that we can develop more valuable takeaways and insights to really improve the service quality of this business, okay? And so I try to keep this as short and sweet as possible. I hope this provides more technicolor into your project and the things that you can do. I will try and get another video posted just to really make things crystal clear for everyone. And I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks, guys.